Hey, welcome to Filler. I'm Joe.
And I'm Steve, and we are here with episode 3 about Bruce Springsteen.
I wish he was Bruce Spindrift. I think I'd like him more. If Bruce Springsteen were a Spindrift flavor, what Spindrift flavor would Bruce Springsteen be?
New Jersey tomato.
That's disgusting. That's disgusting.
Wait, you never had tomato juice?
No, I actually no. No, I haven't.
Oh, it's actually kind of good.
Really?
Yeah.
Any brands that I should check out? V8?
Well, not unless they're going to sponsor us, and then we'll have another enemy.
Now I gotta cut that out. Now I gotta cut that out.
Yeah. That was a good one. That was a good
one. I like that one too.
I didn't think that was going to go anywhere. That was a pretty good one.
That was great. It's because we got that human touch.
You're just trying to annoy me so we don't have to keep listening to Bruce.
No, I'm into this. I'm having fun. I'm having a good time.
We have since titled this series Bruce, because I know for the first 2 we didn't have a name for it because we recorded those in one day, and now we have a name for it. So that's cool.
I was so proud of that title when I came up with it. Friend of the pod, who's never been on the pod, but still friend of the pod. He's probably not even listening right now. Miles and I send each other almost exclusively silly goose memes back and forth because we're just silly goose kind of guys. Mm-hmm. And so when I came up with Bruce as the title, I was like, oh, I got to spell that like goose.
Yeah.
Because it's just
silly
like,
Bruce.
Right? It's right there. So we are in the 90s now, right?
Sure are.
Right. So we had the 70s, and I think that was a rocky start for me. Mm-hmm. I know the 70s are near and dear to you.
Yes, very much.
Yeah. And then we got into the 80s, and in the 80s, I don't think it was as rocky for me.
Yeah. So here's what's been interesting about doing the Bruce series with you is that, like, yeah, you like to, take the piss a little bit and be a contrarian and whatnot. Sometimes seriously, and sometimes just to make people laugh or make them mad, and it makes you laugh. Yeah. But it's been interesting to see your reactions to like the classic era of Bruce, in that the 70s, like, I think you could tell it's good, but not really for you. Yeah. And in the 80s, some of it's really good and is for you, and some of it kind of hit or miss. So now going forward with every episode, in the decades past the golden age of Bruce, I can't wait to see what your reactions are going to be in a time that's beyond what people think of with Bruce. Like when the legend of the artist has kind of taken hold, and everything can feel either like, okay, what does a legacy artist do now?
I think that's interesting because I said this on our last episode with Tunnel of Love kind of being not older, but an aging album or maturing album, because he's just in his late 30s on it. Yeah. I don't think of him as old yet. Mm-hmm. I think in the 90s he starts to age himself. Yeah. But I have not been, I've truly been making an effort as we've gone through all of it to not be contrarian. Yeah. Like I've truly been like, I've been trying to get into the 70s stuff, and you hit the nail on the head. Like it just really wasn't for me. Mm-hmm. But like there every now and then, like I'm not going to deny a Rosalita. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like I get it. I was not being contrarian in the 80s. I truly think Tunnel of Love is his best album by far so far. And that's not me being contrarian. Like I'll happily sit here and like defend that to anyone. Mm-hmm. I even did update my album rankings.
I saw that.
Tunnel of Love has taken top spot, and that's not to say that Nebraska won't win out, or who knows, maybe Lucky Town will. But I still have to go revisit those albums because they're definitely going to be my top 2. Mm-hmm. But just looking at them when I put on Tom Joad, when I put on Lucky Town and Human Touch in my rankings, looking at it, I was like, no, right in this moment, Tunnel of Love is the number 1.
And isn't that interesting how, depending on the day, something just speaks to you more?
100%.
Yeah. I don't know if I want to meet the guy who loves Nebraska more than anything else every day.
Yeah,
that's probably a fucked up dude.
Yeah, that's it. No, 100%. That's not. Yeah. I'm not gonna lie. Probably both of them are messed up dudes, based on what the albums are about. So, like, what does that say about me? But I'd rather meet him than someone who puts, I don't know, the River Disc 2 at the top, because that guy's dumb.
I just love how you're you're singling out the second disc.
Because disc 1, I can say it's not for me. Like I can check my ego that hard on that one. Disc 2, that's like ninth circle of hell shit right there. That's just bad. It's just really bad. I know that you sent me your Perfect River album, and I am gonna listen to it. I didn't decide if I'm gonna do a Substack post on it. I think I will, because I think it'll be fun. I do want to take it seriously, but at the same time, if I'm going back to the river's going to be dry, my friend. So
I will say I only did that because I was re-listening to the episode and heard you say that, I should put together what I think is the right one disc of the river so you could do a Substack thing with it.
Yeah.
And I was like, shit, I got to do that. So since there's, internet culpability there that made me do it, now you have to do it.
Now I have to do it. Yeah, no, that's totally fair. And for the internet, I think I'm going to make my own Perfect River of the two albums. I'm going to go back and listen to what you made, the playlist that you made, and I will write up something on it. Kind of already pissed that you still kept Sherry Darling on it. Spoilers for mine, and that's fine. That's fine. It's fine.
I think it works.
I mean, maybe it will work for me in the context that you laid it out. But I challenge you to write something, and I'll post it on my Substack, and I'll publish it, to write a review of my Perfect River once I put it together.
Okay, well, I challenge you to give me $1,000.
All right, well, I'm not going to listen to your Perfect River, but let's talk about stupid Human Touch and lucky crap.
All right, yeah. So
give us some context.
90s
for the
Bruce.
Worst business decision ever.
So after the Tunnel of Love Limited tour, marrying Patty, and settling into a new phase of life, Bruce needed a change. So he put the E Street Band on hiatus, formed a new band of LA musicians, and spent the start of the 90s laboring over a new album in search of his next sound and source of inspiration. After spending so long fine-tuning and trying to perfect his next album, Human Touch, he found himself writing a whole new batch of songs that came out of nowhere. He decided to record all those songs too, but they were scrappier and had a different feel than the collection he made for Human Touch. So he put those songs together as a whole new album called Lucky Town and released both albums on the same day. Critics have often said he could have cut out the filler from both albums and put the best songs of both records together as one solid album instead of two mediocre ones. Let's see if that rings true 33 years later. Yes. Yeah, starting with Human Touch, because it's technically first, I guess.
Yeah, which I messed up. I messed up on listening to Human Touch first because Apple Music put Lucky Town first, I think. And so when I played the first song on Lucky Town, I was like, oh, all right, I'm into this. But then I was like, no, I gotta do it the right way, because I went back to the notes that you set up for us, and I followed it. And when I put on Human Touch, I was immediately pissed off, because I went from being like, all right, I'm into the first song of Lucky Town, and then Human Touch was just like, that first song, the title track sounded like an outtake of Tunnel, which I didn't think was such a promising way to start an album 5 years later.
Yeah.
After Tunnel of Love, because I called it a watershed album. I don't know if it is or not. I'm sure fans don't think so, because I know it's not a highly regarded record in his discography. But I found it to be a watershed album, just personally speaking, because I think he becomes a different artist personally after it. Yeah. Especially in the content that he's singing about. And if you're still sounding like what you did 5 years ago, why'd you take 5 years to write it?
Yeah. Yeah, so it's funny that you pointed that out, because, I mean, everybody knows Nirvana changed everything in the 90s, and Bruce had been gone for 3 years, 4 years by the time Nirvana comes out with Smells Like Teen Spirit and Nevermind, and, just changes the face of rock music forever. I think between Bruce's personal life of, like, marrying Patty, having his first kid, and trying to find what was in him, and while also dealing with the LA riots and living in LA at the time, like, all this stuff kind of compiled on and, like, delayed his creative flow for quite a while. So for him to take so long to make Human Touch, and it just sounds less special because it's not the E Street Band.
Yeah.
And the new band, there's nothing wrong with the new band, but it's not capturing anything.
It's not the E Street Band.
Like when you get to a song like Soul Driver, I'm just really not getting the sense that this couldn't have been the E Street Band because Bruce is in charge anyway. So what does it really matter?
He strikes me. This is pure conjecture and like just me like trying to piece him together. Mm-hmm. He strikes me as a guy that like always has something to prove. Mm-hmm. And even when he doesn't have something to prove, he'll go out of his way to find something to prove. Mm-hmm. And so after he did Nebraska, mm-hmm. and then he did Born in the USA, which was an E Street record, right?
Yes.
Right. And so the follow-up to that, he was like, all right, let me go do my own thing again with Tunnel of Love. I think he got it in his head. And again, pure conjecture. I feel like he got it in his head that he's like, oh, this is me now. Like I have to show that I can do this.
I think more so for himself than anything.
Yeah. I don't think he was trying to prove it to anyone but himself.
Yeah. I mean, I can imagine feeling a little stifled by still having the same creative forces and kind of predicting what they're all going to contribute to your stuff. I mean, we saw that it didn't work when he tried to turn Nebraska electric, and that's why he kept it as an acoustic album. So yeah, I think he was starting to just feel a little antsy, was feeling the sea change of the 90s. Didn't quite rise to meet it because I don't know if you've ever seen the music video for Human Touch.
No.
It's awful. It is like, and not in a funny way like Dancing in the Dark or Glory Days or anything. It's just this very uncomfortable, sexy thing he's doing where like he gets shirtless at one point and he's got this stupid soul patch and his hair is long and
he has a soul patch this early? Wow.
Yeah, it stays for a while too. Wow. And he looks good, like he's in good shape and stuff. He's only like 42, something like that, 40, 42. But it's just, there's something about like boudoir Bruce that just does not hit right. And it shows that he just doesn't really know what he's doing.
I don't think he should try to be sexy.
Yeah.
Because I think he knows he has that sex appeal with his charisma. Mm-hmm. And so it becomes cheesy when he employs it.
Yes.
You know? It's like having a part of your personality that you're like, oh, people like it when I make this joke, so I'm just going to make it 5 million times, and then it gets old, you know? Mm-hmm. So him being like, oh, people think I'm sexy, especially after I have friends who look at that Tunnel of Love album and like they bite their lip at that bolo tie.
The bolo tie?
Yeah. And I feel like he did that album cover and then he's like, oh, I'm gonna be sexy now with my bolo tie and Don Ho shirts. Like,
yeah, no, he went with like deep V-necks and like it's bad. But you know, no one gets out of changing trends unscathed, I'd say.
You made a comment about the E Street Band and like getting stifled. I just wanted to note that something I found interesting about that is that he does his own thing on Nebraska, comes back with E Street Band, and then he does his own thing again on Tunnel of Love. Yeah. So I don't know how he'd feel stifled, especially because he took then another 5 years off. So I would love for him to like talk about this.
Yeah.
Like this, like, especially because I want to give him that benefit of the doubt and be like, oh, I just want to do something new. I want to do something different. Yeah. But it's not that new. You just did it twice in the 80s.
Yeah.
It's not that different because you did it literally half a decade ago. Mm-hmm. Like your musicians are going to be different.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I think he wanted, maybe I should have taken more thorough notes because I ran out of Spotify audiobook hours for a whole month, so I couldn't keep listening to the book. So it's been a while since I've heard this chapter, but I believe he was trying to inject some new energy and youth into his music.
I think that's wild because these albums sound super dated.
Yes, this sounds like the most dated stuff. It sounds like holdover stuff from the 80s. Yeah. It's not meeting the moment while trying to be more modern. It just doesn't work. And unfortunately, I think a lot of the best songs from this album that ended up being on that MTV Live Plugged, it's like the Unplugged show, but they just crossed out the
Gotcha.
fun part. He kind of just took a lot of the best songs from both albums and a couple deep cuts and classics, like an electric version of Atlantic City and a few other things, and did it all on that album, and kind of proves that these two albums should have just been one.
Yeah.
Because when you go through these, it's like, okay, yeah, 57 channels and nothing on. Really cool song, really killer bass line, cool mood, kind of fits the madness of the character. And it's interesting to see history changing through following Bruce's music and how he chronicles the times. But that does date things of being
I was going to say, this aged it really, really hard, because if I showed this to one of my students, they'd be like, what's a channel? Like, literally. And they'd be like, it's what we used to call a streaming service. Like,
yeah, when I was growing up, it was like 57 channels seems like nothing because we had like 300 channels.
Yeah.
Now it's like, what are channels? Like YouTube channels?
Right.
Why are there only 57? Aren't there millions? Yeah.
Also, what's with him coming back to 57 over and over again?
Where else does he?
Incident on 57th Street.
That's right.
So why is he doing 57? So, like, that's such a specific number that
that might actually be how many channels he had on his
That's funny.
Like cable package.
That's funny. I speaking of dating, Cross My Heart, the next one, that was him riffing on ZZ Top.
Mm-hmm. You think so?
That solo? Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
All I can really remember is the palm mutes, because it was the first time that ever really stood out to me when he does a palm muted song.
Okay.
I know he's done it before, but like that's the first time I noticed it. I was already getting a little sick of the mid-tempo stuff, and it's not even 4 minutes and feels too long.
I'm not gonna lie, I think he was getting sick of it too, because on Cross My Heart, he sounds bored.
Yeah.
Like, his vocal delivery sounds bored. And if you sound bored, why are you even doing this?
Yeah, like the next one, Gloria's Eyes, like it's got a great riff and, some much needed energy, but I'd wish he'd switch up his guitar tone a little bit, so it doesn't. I
like that just because it reminded me of the Beatles.
Okay.
So I thought that was like, okay, for 1992.
It does kind of sound like Day Tripper or something. Yeah.
And I was like, I'm into this kind of low-key Beatles worship. We just did the episode with my sister. There's a similar song on, I think it's Cold Spring Harbor, where there's that compressed guitar riff that sounds Beatlesy. Right. So like, I like that. I think that works for me because, not because Billy Joel or Bruce are timeless, but because the Beatles are timeless. When someone riffs on them, all right,
yeah,
I'll take it.
This song, With Every Wish, I don't remember this song at all, like from before.
Yeah.
Like, I grew up listening to every one of his albums. I don't think I've ever heard this song. And that's crazy. Like, I kind of like the soft country thing he's doing, and I like the trumpet, but
I like the trumpet.
There's this thing he does on this album a lot where the lyrics just kind of stop.
Yeah.
There's no real ending to it. It's just very awkward.
Yeah.
Sometimes he does this where, like, this will come up a lot more on like Tom Joad and more like story song albums, where he'll end on a shorter stanza.
Yeah.
And it's almost like a sonnet where it's like you're used to the length of each verse and the structure of it, and then just one shorter one at the end to kind of be a stinger of like, this is the final point. But this doesn't have that. This is just, it's like somebody ripped the lyric sheet off. It's just weird.
I didn't notice when Roll of the Dice came on because I was scrolling on my phone. Usually I try to sit there and actively watch the lyrics scroll on Apple Music.
I've been doing that, yeah.
And the lyric that brought me back was champagne on ice, just another roll of the dice. And I was like, you just ice rhymed.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
He rhymes away and away a lot on some songs. Yeah. Roll of the Dice is like a good hook on the chorus, I guess, but it's just a metaphor about gambling being squeezed dry. And this is where it really hit me that so many of these songs just jam longer than they need to. Like, they overstay their welcome, and not in a way where we kind of disagree on like what songs are in their length and his early stuff.
Right.
All of this is too long.
Yeah.
Like unquestionably so.
He did another double album where he needed an editor, and every song also needed an editor. This is really silly. The only note that I took on Real World is that there is a bell ding that rings out on every other fourth beat, and that irritated me.
Me too.
And I can hear that and nothing else.
You wanted guitar solos? Here they are. All of them. All the solos. They're all on this song. But I was really feeling the slog on that stupid fucking bell. Oh, it drove me crazy. But then All or Nothing at All is just kind of, I would like this song a lot more if I wasn't fatigued by this point.
I said it was fine.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. I think it's the same reason. There's a lyric, loving you's a man's job.
Oh, on Man's Job. Yeah.
On
yeah.
Man's Job. And dude,
I think I can debate this one a little bit.
You can't.
I know
you can't. He was so earnest in his exploration of his masculinity on Tunnel of Love.
Yeah, Walk Like a Man. Yeah.
Yeah. And you come here and he does Man's Job and then he does Real Man later on, which is the same thing as Man's Job. That it's like you just walk back a lot of the good grace that I gave you from Tunnel.
See, I think with this one, it was more about treating manhood with maturity and stepping up for those you love than it is about seeming alpha. Is that a retread of Walk Like a Man? A little bit.
It is.
But it's also got a different flair to it. I think it's a catchy song. I would like it more if I didn't hear a bunch of stuff that already sounded like it earlier.
I feel like you're giving it a generous reading.
I am.
Yeah,
I definitely am. Now, this next one, though, I Wish I Were Blind.
Oh, I wish I were deaf so that the album could end.
The version on the MTV Live Plugged album is so much better than this one. He makes better melodic choices. He gives more power to it when he's singing it live. And I don't know, I never have a reason to go back to this version of the song where I will listen to the live one. Because it sounds kind of sleepy and robs any power that the song has when he goes, I wish I were blind when I see you with you, man. Where he makes it more interesting on the live version where he goes, well, I wish I were blind when I see you with your man. Like it goes places and you can feel the energy more from the band. Where this is just kind of sleepy and schmaltzy and just, I don't know. I would never know that this was a good song based on this presentation of it.
Yeah.
Without the live one.
Yeah. I think that's something that a lot of good bands do. And I'm about to call us a good band, so I'm being lame. But I feel like you record a song and that doesn't have to be the Bible of the song, you know?
Yes.
So I think it's cool that he recorded it, and then when he goes and plays it live, he changes it. And that's just the way he does it live now. And you go and listen to it and it's like, it's not the same.
Yeah.
And he goes, nope, it's not the same. And you just own it, you move on. You made it better in the live setting.
Yeah. And we'll see later in his career how he kind of does the opposite, where he'll debut a song live and it becomes a live staple, and then they can't get it right in the studio after.
Yeah.
Or it takes them decades to finally get it on a record. But with The Long Goodbye, like, I don't remember this one either. Total filler. Kind of annoying. It's called The Long Goodbye when there's 2 more songs.
That pissed me off.
It's like, yeah, you're reminding me that I want this album to be over.
Yep.
Real Man, I don't care at all.
It's the same thing. It's the same masculinity stuff that he keeps looking at. And then he throws some nanas in there.
You really hate the nana thing.
No, I don't mind it, but it's just like Blink-182 is doing this 5 years later.
That's true.
And it's better.
Yeah.
Like, I said that this is worse than the River disc too, and I stand by it, especially with Pony Boy.
Yeah, okay. I remember hearing this for the first time as a kid, and I was like, what the hell is this? If I had to guess, he wrote this as a lullaby for his firstborn son, Evan. Doesn't mean we needed to hear it, though.
Nope, doesn't.
Like, that's sweet, I guess, but I don't care. Like, who's gonna listen to this song? You know, like, I don't know.
I hated the song. After an album that was too long and pissed me off to get through, when I was kind of looking forward to it after Tunnel of Love, I just like to see where he goes next. It seems like every time I'm hoping he zigs, he zags. And it's meandering. It's just, all of it I feel like is unearned, including the tambourine on Pony Boy. The only thing I liked about Pony Boy actually was the harmonica. I was like, all right, that's fine. Like, you could do it on this one.
I kind of missed it, yeah.
But just like this whole thing, I'm really glad that Nirvana came in with grunge, and I'm really glad that genre was invented to scare off all of the boomers.
Yeah.
To kind of like say like, hey, like we are the new face of radio rock. I really appreciate Subversion, I guess, because like challenging of authority and like the preeminent figure in something suggests that they either have to get better or there's a new guard.
Yes.
And that just means that there's progression.
Adapt or die.
Right, which I appreciate. And he did not adapt on this record.
No, but I'm also glad he didn't try to make a grunge record.
I am too.
I
am too.
That would be worse.
Yeah, I think that was one of my theories that he was going to try to do in the 90s. And spoiler, he ends up not doing it.
Yeah.
And I think that would have been much harder for me to listen to than this. I do think listening to it would have been more interesting.
Maybe.
I would be curious to see, in the same way that I found it interesting that he made the most 80s of 80s records with Tunnel of Love. I would love to hear what he thinks is the 90s of 90s records. Like, give me the weird sounding guitars.
But it's bad.
Well, I would like this, but grunge.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I would like Steve Albini production for Bruce Springsteen. What does that sound like?
That would be weird.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But like, I'm curious about what that sounds like in a way that I'm not interested in him kind of just retreading previous stuff for what becomes 2 albums.
Yeah. And we need to get to that second album from the same day, which I'm not going to lie, I think is a little better.
I think it's a little bit better too.
I don't know if I'm like making or if I'm filling in blanks in my head or giving it extra credit because I know that it was scrapped together quicker in a burst of inspiration and that makes it better on principle, as opposed to, spending 5 years to put together a slog of songs on Human Touch. I don't know if that makes this better because it was more whirlwind, but to start with Better Days, knowing that it's about him coming off of a divorce and the lost feelings he had through that into literal better days with a girl like you, makes me appreciate that. It kind of gives a glimpse into his life and that things actually do seem better for him now that he's with the right person. Despite all the imposter syndrome and the self-sabotage, he's found better days. I mean, it's a simple idea, but and it really works better, I think, in hindsight once we've known that he and Patty are going to be together for 30 some years.
I can imagine this one being fun live too.
Yeah. I think this is on that live album too.
That'd be cool to check out. I thought this was catchy. I thought it was fun. I agree. I thought it was very basic cliche of a sentiment, but I'm glad the dude's earned his happiness.
Yeah.
Glad he got there. That's great. I'm not going to come at you for it.
Lucky Town, the title track. This is one of my favorite typical Bruce songs.
Okay.
It's twangy and kind of a harder rock song. He's really putting on the affectation in his voice.
I was going to say, it sounds like he's
I want to lose these boots I found. Like it's silly, but I'm into it for just a simple rock song with a little bit of twang and it's like kind of Western influence to it. I like it,
So previously, listeners at home or wherever, I was paying attention to rim shots.
Yeah.
Because that was something that he did. So he does do rim shots on Better Days. I'm sure rim shots showed up at some point on Human Touch. So there's no reason why Max Weinberg couldn't be behind the kit. But on Lucky Town, I start keeping track of fade outs.
Oh.
And this is something you mentioned about Human Touch, and I agreed with, about there needing to be an editor. I actually think that Bruce doesn't know how to end a song.
Yeah.
And that just keeps showing up over and over again. The first song, Better Days, fade out, which that's fine. You can have a fade out on that one. I'm not coming at you in the first one. Second one, Lucky Town. Did we need a fade out on that one? I don't think so. Local Hero, which felt like filler to me after Lucky Town. 3 fade outs in a row. And it's just, he starts setting himself up on this path. Like, you don't know what you're doing. Like, I see the whirlwind element of it, and I appreciate that because I think you can like truly catch lightning in a bottle. But if you don't know, it sounds to me like you don't know what you're doing. Like, you're not catching lightning in a bottle. Yeah,
no, I think a fade out is an obvious sign of not knowing something. I think that's why people don't really do them anymore. It's because it's more of a choice now that you're trying to do something with it because it's so uncommon, or it's just that clear that you do not know how to end the song. I think if I had to guess, it's because he's writing these songs in the studio with no band. Like he's not road testing these first, where you literally have to have an end to the song because you're playing it live. So it's easy to just be like, we'll just fade that out and, we'll figure out an ending later.
Which makes me sad because I don't think he's a lazy person.
No, and what Local Hero is about is actually kind of interesting because it's this like cynical look at himself as the hometown hero of small town New Jersey. And he's got this lyric about it being a rich man in a poor man's shirt. And it's like he's really feeling that imposter syndrome.
I'm kind of glad that he is.
Yeah.
I think that's appropriate.
No, I don't think he could be as genuine of an artist without being self-aware.
Okay.
And so he knows like he can't cosplay as a working Joe forever, That'll come up more on the next album though. If I Should Fall Behind is another ballad that's better on the MTV Live Plugged album, but unfortunately it's like it follows an extremely similar structure to I Wish I Were Blind.
Yeah. And
so I always just kind of get the two confused in my mind. But it is one of the few songs from this era that the E Street Band would go on to play together once they reunited. But it's weird because they're about different things, the two songs, but just in my mind, they just kind of blend together.
I find that okay, especially as artists grow in their discography. Not necessarily that he's like going back to the well. I'm not accusing him of being like creatively inept or dry or anything like that, but just that artists develop a voice. And once you make as much music as he makes, especially up until this point, it's going to sound similar and like, all right, that's fine.
Yeah.
Like I'm not going to fault you so much for that. I appreciated that song was under 3 minutes and it ended.
Yep. Then it goes on to Leap of Faith. Which,
dude.
Let me guess, the choir.
So I actually liked the guitar and the vocal melodies on this one. What actually hurt me was the whole metaphor seemed way too amateur and way too basic. Even with Better Days, you're happy. I'm glad you have better days. On Leap of Faith, he goes, you were the Red Sea, I was Moses.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, like, it's just like, it felt like you opened up the Bible and were like, what kind of innuendo can I make here? And connecting that back to making a leap of faith into a relationship and with someone and whatnot. It was just like...
Well, as we established with the women thirsting over him in the bolo tie and he's got the V-neck shirt, maybe they want to be spread by Bruce. You never know.
But you were the Red Sea, I was Moses. That's such a bad line.
Yes, it is. But then he gets into like a really cool song with the Big Muddy. It's just this cool vibe, kind of like a swampy Cajun thing going on.
You like this one, and I did not like it, but I appreciated that it was different.
It's different, and I think just interesting enough to break things up.
Yeah, it was interesting. Yeah.
Now, Living Proof. This was actually originally meant to be a song on Human Touch, and it was working on this song that catalyzed him to write the rest of the album.
Okay.
And it's directly about the birth of his first child, Evan.
That's sweet. I wish it didn't sound exactly like Better Days.
I said the exact same thing because it is a beautiful song about the new life he's found in fatherhood, blah, blah, blah. It sounds like Better Days.
Why? Okay. I understand, I guess, chronologically speaking or narratively speaking, why Better Days should come first.
Yeah.
But
you're starting These Are Better Days. Yeah.
It makes sense, but it does hurt him by making it sound way too similar to Better Days.
Yeah.
I do have to say, this is now 5 fade outs on the album.
Oh, we have to 5 now?
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't tell you where 4 showed up. Listeners, pay attention at home. Go back and listen.
Wait, no, which one was it? I'm so good. I'm not going to tell the listeners go listen to this album.
Yeah, that's fair. That's kind of rude. Yeah, they'll give us a bad review.
Is it Leap of Faith?
Is it Leap of Faith?
I feel like it could be.
Yes, Leap of Faith is 4 fade outs. Yeah.
Then after Living Proof is Book of Dreams. I swear I've never heard this song before. I do not remember this one at all. And it goes on for a whole minute too long again.
There's rim shots on it.
There's rim shots on it.
I thought it sounded the most modern of everything on the album. So for me, it gave it some points, but I don't think it's memorable because I couldn't tell you right now what sounded.
Yeah, I feel like I've still never heard it.
Yeah. I have literally nothing to say about Souls of the Departed. I don't remember it whatsoever.
It's a filler song. I do remember it because I remember hearing it before, but I don't get why he's got these like sleepy vocals on an otherwise pretty harder rock song.
Yeah.
I don't get it's just mismatched there. And then My Beautiful Reward's a decent enough closer, albeit pretty formulaic.
Agreed. I think he nails closing songs.
Yeah.
So there's nothing to come
Except
at him
Pony
in that
Boy.
way. Except what?
Pony Boy.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that closed the album. There was no fade out on Pony Boy.
Yep.
Yeah, I was not a fan of either of these.
I think Lucky Town is easily better.
Yeah.
If for nothing but its brevity. You
Yeah.
know? Like,
I would even give it more than that. It was... He tried more stuff on Lucky Town.
mm-hmm.
It also just felt rushed. Like you said, with the fade outs, like he was just in the studio probably and was like, let's call it.
Yeah.
But I think between the two of them, I kind of wish he shelved Human Touch, like just entirely.
The whole album.
I don't think anything specifically stands out to me that I'd want him to keep. Now that I'm looking back at it, really everything I was like,
I would have kept Human Touch, the title track, if it was like 2 minutes shorter.
I agree. Yeah,
I would have kept 57 channels.
I would also keep 57 channels. Yeah, but I think that's it for me. I think only those two songs. I think if you put those two songs,
if he did I Wish I Were Blind correctly, I would keep that.
I think between the
that
two
might
of
be
them,
it.
He could.
I also kind of like Man's Job, but that's
a you.
Yeah,
that's a you pick.
That's fine.
I think he could put a couple or like 2 or 3 songs onto Lucky Town and remove like Souls of the Departed. You could take that off.
Yeah, and
like you don't
maybe
need that.
Book of Dreams, maybe Leap of Faith.
Yeah, and taking that off, I wouldn't mind if this were a somewhat longer album, if it were more solid to listen to. Like if it was like an entire 6.5, 7 album, that's fine.
Yeah,
you don't got to reinvent the wheel, but like
right,
didn't need 2 albums again.
So yeah, having not really worked with that, he's kind of back to the drawing board. So in between making those 2 albums and his next full album, he received an Oscar for Streets of Philadelphia, a song that he wrote for the movie Philadelphia, directed by Jonathan Demme. It's a film about a gay man living with AIDS, played by Tom Hanks. So amidst recording that song, he recorded this whole other album that I believe he was going to call Streets of Philadelphia. And it was another one about relationships. But he stopped and was like, that would be my 4th in a row. So I'm not doing that. And he shelved the whole thing. And instead, briefly reunited with the E Street Band, including Steven Van Zandt, to record a few new songs for their Greatest Hits album. So I didn't include this, but there are some really great new songs that they did for that. Secret Garden and Blood Brothers and Murder Incorporated, like really, really good songs on that. So I would check it out on your own time if you'd like. But that whole Streets of Philadelphia album, we just found out is going to be on Tracks 2, because it's like 7 albums between, I want to say, what was it, 83 and 90 something? I don't know. But Tracks 1 was an almost 70 song album of outtakes, old demos, and like just older unreleased music. Tracks 2 is now going to be the next era of entire shelved Bruce albums.
I actually listened to Human Touch and Lucky Town the day Tracks 2 was announced. So
That's right.
It felt very serendipitous when I saw that. I'm actually very happy that Streets of Philadelphia is going to be on it, because I'm interested in how that sounds, because I love that movie and I love that song.
Yeah.
So that'll be
it's
cool
a great song.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, if he listened back to Human Touch and Lucky Town and released those, that doesn't exactly bode well for a whole album that he was just like, actually, no. But I'm still curious because it's all compiled, and I'd like to hear what it's like.
I'm interested in it because if he can do one Oscar-winning song, let me see what else you can do on that album.
Yeah.
Like I will give you that grace. You already were acclaimed by so many other people to have earned that. Why not? I'll give it a try.
Cool.
If I gave everything else a try, I'll do that one a try. You know?
All right. Now, one leftover song from the sessions that he did with the E Street Band for the Greatest Hits added songs was the title track for his next album, The Ghost of Tom Joad, along with a rekindled interest in writing about social issues. That song formed the basis of that album. It was all recorded at home. I believe this is the last one that he and Landau produced together before they start working with a producer. The central question he'd been wrestling with for over 10 years, where does a rich man belong? Which
I'm laughing
that
in
is
2025.
that is not the question a man who was born rich would ever ask himself.
Yeah.
They don't care. But as a guy who became rich through making songs about poor people and was a poor person himself and is further and further distance from that, I could see why it's on his mind. Basically, the approach of Ghost of Tom Joad is Nebraska, but about Mexican immigrants facing the same struggles as well as the loss of industry in America. So I think this is really interesting because when we listen to Nebraska, in my mind, all those people are white. You know, they're all like, especially when you're talking about a place like Nebraska, you kind of picture white people. And that seems to be the story he's telling on that album. That might be my own experience as a white person thinking, default in white people terms. But this had more of a point of relating a group that he is not a part of and how they go through struggles similar to the ones he's already detailed on Nebraska. The same kinds of feelings of loss and looking for a better life. And a lot of this stuff comes up on Nebraska, and you can see the easy parallels between the two. And one of the big inspirations for this album was naturally a movie adaptation of The Grapes of Wrath. I forget which movie it was, which movie version, but I never knew this, that Tom Joad is the name of the protagonist of The Grapes of Wrath. Mm-hmm. So I was like, well, shit, now I got to read The Grapes of Wrath to fully understand what the point is, especially if I know going into this that this is about or heavily Mexican stories. It's like, what does that have to do with The Grapes of Wrath? But I didn't know anything about that book. I've only made it a third of the way through the book because I mostly just read on the train to and from work. But I can already see the parallels because it's about a family being forced out of their home in, I think, Oklahoma and moving to California, where there's the promise of opportunity to work in vineyards and orange orchards. And
this is John Steinbeck, right?
Yeah.
Dude loves California. He can write about it for days. Yeah.
Where it would normally, I think, be a little to have a white guy writing about Mexican experiences, I think it's the fact that he's relating it back to other kinds of stories he's been telling for years, and now just having a new setting to apply that same humanity to it. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a white guy making an excuse for another white guy. I think it works. And I really, really like this album. And I think it's a very underrated album.
I think you explained it really well. Going into it way earlier on, I told you my preconceived notions about it. Mm-hmm. I still feel bristly at the whole, like, where does a rich man fit in? Like, that's still coming from a big place of privilege, even if you were a poor man. Mm-hmm. At this time, you've been rich probably comparably for about as long as you were poor, because he started when he was in his 20s, no? Like, that's when he started to hit it in the 70s.
Yeah, but then he was in debt for a long time.
That's your fault.
That's true.
That's your fault. So that's you having to own that level of socioeconomic status, I guess. Mm-hmm. Whereas genuinely, like, trudging through poverty beforehand and then having to earn it. I mean, like, Nicolas Cage went into debt for a long time and he just made crap movies. That's true. And, like, you don't see him being like, where does a rich man fit in? Well, he fits in Pig. That's where he fits in, But I do think that you gave great context for Tom Joad. And not only because I already listened to it and whatever preemptive stuff that we talked about it off mic about it, whatever little that there was, I think he does do a good job of it too. I think I see the connections that he's making. It does feel a little disingenuous isn't the right word. It feels a little, maybe feels just a little too white. When he says Luis, like, talking about like it's just like that's his affect that he's putting on, and maybe he shouldn't have done it in that one. But I'm truly not. I'm getting nitpicky at that point,
I wonder if it's his, like, time. He's been living in LA for a while at this point. I wonder if he's starting to embrace like California and like Mexican immigrants and like the culture that's such a different one than he grew up with in New Jersey. I wonder if it's starting to bleed into him. I mean, it must be if he felt inspired enough to write an album with so many stories like that on it. And it does break into even other kinds of immigrant stories that we can get to later, because
But before we do the songs, because I do want to talk about them. We didn't talk about with Human Touch and Lucky Town. I wanted to wait until now to bring it up.
Okay.
I thought his album art choices for the 90s.
Oh my God, thank you. I forgot. Yes.
They were despicable.
This is the worst era of album art for Bruce. And
I think for a lot of bands and for a lot of artists. I think there was this idea of edginess in the 90s, especially because I think now that we're looking back on it, it's kind of like a golden era or pinnacle of American culture, I think. And in the 90s, they were like, yeah, let's do whatever. Like we're past anything. Like we're starting to enter like postmodernism as like an artistic movement. But I felt like in comics, to relate it to this, in comics, there was like a huge edginess thing in the 90s. Everyone was super big. There's this like hysterical picture that Rob Liefeld drew of Captain America.
Oh, is it the one where he's like a fridge?
Yeah, he has a barrel chest and like the thinnest calves, and it's like no human looks like that. And you don't have to draw people to look like people. You're going to comics for that. But there is a line where it comes like, this is like kind of silly.
Yeah.
So it's like you're drawing the curvy women, extra curvy. You're drawing the bulky men, extra bulky. It felt like this album looked like a Mudvayne cover album.
Yeah.
Like, he was like, you want edgy? I'll give you edgy. And then he starts like hitting a twang about Luis. It just like not. There's like a lot of cognitive dissonance for me there, and it looked bad. It looked like they were being edgy just to be edgy.
Yeah.
You know?
I think the Human Touch and Lucky Town album covers look even worse because it just doesn't even fit. Like, I think this album cover is terrible, but it's just bad execution of a clear idea. Whereas Human Touch and Lucky Town, I don't know what the fuck he's going for with that red text over like a clear background and a picture of him he's standing in the middle of on Lucky Town. It's like the worst thing to look at. I feel like he's
trying to combine previous eras of himself where he's like, we had red text on Nebraska. All right. There was a picture of me on Born to Run. All right.
Oh my God. The 2000s will get into like these two albums back to back that have like the same
I can't wait for those. Yeah.
And it's extra annoying because Human Touch and Lucky Town were released on the same day, so they have the same bad choice of text over them.
Yeah.
No, thank you for reminding me about this, because I wanted to say this is easily the worst era of album art. Like,
Fortunately, though, Tom Joad has better songs than Human Touch and Lucky Town. Like
I'd say it's a good album.
I think it's a good album. Yeah, I think it's a good album. I think right away it sounded like Nebraska to me, which is cool. And I know you said that to me, that this was kind of like a sequel to that, thematically speaking and instrumentally. I thought he kind of knew that he screwed the pooch on the last two albums, and he was like, all right, they love Nebraska. let me give them California, Nebraska. He doesn't stick in acoustic only territory, which I appreciated. Like, he gets a little full bandy on Ghost of Tom Joad, which I thought was eerie. I thought it was sinister. He's getting back to those noir roots that I really appreciated for him. The one thing that did stand out to me negatively, and I think it was just on that first song, maybe later if it comes up again, I wasn't crazy about the mixing on this album, which you said this is the last Landau and Springsteen produced one, right? Yeah. Yeah, there was, when the harmonica comes in, I found the highs way too piercing. Yeah. His voice, I thought, was too low in the mix. And I know sometimes he leans into it, and he wants you to listen, so he's going to talk a little softer. Yeah. But he literally just sounded too low. Like, I couldn't hear him. So it's me like playing with the volume while I'm listening. And anytime a listener does that, you're kind of throwing them out. Yeah. Like, they should be able to just sit there and engage with your art, not have to like finger the volume switch, you know?
I could see that.
But I don't think I had any real true issue with the songs aside from the mixing on this one.
Yeah, I think it has. I said that this one has the sauce immediately. Like, it's got a spirit to it. like you said, a noir feel. It's like the atmosphere, the melody, the storytelling are all top notch, but I didn't know what it was about because I hadn't read Grapes of Wrath yet.
Yeah.
And I found this quote from the book that I think sums it up very well. The people in flight from the terror behind, strange things happen to them, some bitterly cruel, and some so beautiful that the faith is refired forever. Page 122. I think that is kind of that stood out to me enough to be like that's the one I should write down and say is kind of a thesis, because these are not all totally miserable songs.
They're not,
but they are a little bleak.
Yeah, there's a sadness to it. Like just in like on Nebraska, he says there's a meanness in me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't think there's a meanness in this album, but there's a melancholy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Straight Time being about failing to adjust to life out of prison and itching to go back to the routine that's been beaten into you.
Dude, I loved Straight Time.
With that line, seems you can't get any more than half free.
Yeah. Yep. The line that stuck out to me that like broke my heart was, I'm sick of doing straight time.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm sick of being a good guy.
Yeah.
Like I was like, ooh, it makes me think that Bruce has this urge to be a terrible person in him, and that he constantly fights it just because he writes all these songs about criminals and about ne'er-do-wells and about people really, really trying their hardest and just like, they're just really damned if they do.
And that, I think, plays into the privilege he's acquired with his riches, in that he's been rewarded for bad behavior in the past. You know, he's cheated on his wife. He's blown up at his band. He's like been a tyrant as a band leader. He's pushed people away and like really hasn't faced any consequences for that. Or if he has, he's come out the other side of it. And I think that idea being the same for a criminal who's come out of prison is like, well, if I know what'll happen to me if I do bad things, there's no stopping me
Why
anymore.
should I stop?
It's kind of like when you get a tattoo for the first time and you're like, is it going to hurt? What's it going to feel like? And then you feel it, and yeah, it hurts, but not so bad you wouldn't do it again.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, no, that's a good way to put it. That actually makes me think of Dave Grohl and his whole scandal, where I think he was in a lot of people's good graces after Taylor Hawkins' death.
Nicest guy in rock, and then he loses his best friend. Yeah,
he goes full rock star by having a whole secret kid and secret family and whatnot.
And that's just the first one we know of,
right? And he's kind of was like low key canceled for a second, but like not even fully, like softly canceled. And then Nirvana came back, and they were playing shows, and everyone's like, "Oh, Dave Grohl's behind the kid." No one had a problem with it. Yeah. So I think he's another example of being rewarded for bad behavior because, I mean, you did a crappy thing, not really illegal, just kind of immoral, but you're big enough to be kind of like untouchable. Yeah. With that, at least in that one.
But also not so bad that there's anything really worth canceling him over.
Right. You might just lose some fans who are less forgiving of what you do in your personal life. Which, because we're just talking 90s, this makes me think of like Bill Clinton being impeached with the whole scandal with Monica Lewinsky. And I remember being in, I think it was A-Push in high school, and we were talking about this because we were just like, this is wild. I know this is a tangent, but this is wild that there's a president who's being impeached for something moral. I know. And the teacher was like, well, that's where we were at in the 90s, that you wanted to show that you had someone who was moral in the White House. It's 2025.
Yeah, it's a different time now.
I was not crazy about one part about Highway 29. Okay. That bothered me, which I thought was a great Bonnie and Clyde story. Yes. And I thought it was fun that he's riffing on Bonnie and Clyde because that's kind of a classic tale and a classic idea. He just kept saying slip in it. Like the literal word slip, like they gave him the slip. Oh, and then they ran down the slip. Like I'm not quoting the lyrics properly, but he kept using it in different ways. And it was like one of those he can't stop rhyming ice and ice. He can't stop rhyming away and away. And it's just like, dude, like you get a good motif and you beat that shit to a pulp. Like just let it be it.
Yeah, this has that same thing you said about like it's being very soft, so you have to lean in to focus.
Yeah.
Kind of varies how you take that, like whether you like that or not. I get what he's going for by making you lean in to focus on it, but kind of a matter of taste, I guess, of whether or not you actually want to listen to that. You know?
Yeah.
But then we get to Youngstown, one of the full band songs. There aren't that many, but this has a full band on it. This is one of my favorites.
Really?
I've always liked this one, even when I wasn't that familiar with this record as a kid, because it's about the cycle of the military-industrial complex from the perspective of multiple generations in one town whose economy is dependent on weapons production, and the abandonment of that town once war technology outgrows the need for them.
See, the way you describe it, I think is way better than what it actually is.
So I feel that way about my own music. I swear to God, when I did that interview with Kanem for his podcast, I was like off the cuff explaining the meaning of songs that I've written. And I was like impressing myself with how I was. And I don't mean this to like toot my own horn, because I was like, oh, I just made that song sound smarter than it actually is, because I just liked how I summed it up. But I don't know how well I actually executed the message in the song itself. So if that message doesn't get through to you, but it does to me, either because I've been more familiar with it for longer, or because like I'm looking on the side of positivity as opposed to neutrality, like he doesn't have to impress me already. Like I'm not looking for it. Like I'm already giving him grace. Then maybe objectively it doesn't get the message across, or the music doesn't make you want to dig deeper for it.
That was the part for me, because he already had grace for me on this album, because I liked everything up until Tom Joad was good, Straight Time was good, Highway 29. Like there's nothing that stood out as starkly like I'm out in the way that pretty quickly I was out on Human Touch and Lucky Town.
Yeah.
But Youngstown, it sounded like Turn the Page to me.
Yeah.
And I really like Turn the Page.
I like Turn the Page.
And I actually prefer the Metallica cover.
Oh my God.
Which is like a wild take. I know I'm wrong. That's fine. Cancel me. But I that's how I got into Turn the Page, was from Metallica.
Oh, really?
And I think that's just why I heard it first. But I really like when Bruce sings noirs. I'm not crazy about his westerns.
Okay.
And that's kind of where like the line starts to draw for me a little bit. I thought the chorus was boring. I feel like when his songs are glued to a certain time, like 57 channels, that works because it's like kind of cheeky, and like silly and like tongue in cheek, just ultimately. This is serious, and I honestly did not even think of like military industrial complex. I just
really? What were you thinking of?
I was like, this sounds like a Western.
Oh, okay.
And then I was like, all right, they're following the town throughout the years, and like how, like no matter what happens to it, it's just like it can't do any good. Like the people there, they're going to be stuck in the same old things that they're stuck in, whether it's the 1800s, whether it's the 1900s. Like I think I got a similar message from it, just not as specific. You know, not a bad song. I'm not saying it's a bad song by any means. It just, of everything so far, this is the first one where I was like, could have put on Turn the Page.
Oh man, now you got me thinking about Whiskey in the Jar from that same album, the Garage Inc. Metallica album.
I love Garage Inc. Love Garage Inc.
That might be your hottest take yet.
I love it because I think it's fun.
Yeah.
That's it. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think it's good.
I'm going to remember you said that when we get to his folk covers album in 2006.
I can't believe you're even making me listen to that. Like,
I don't think we'll say much about it, but yeah, anyway. Sinaloa Cowboys. I immediately thought this was Bruce at his most Bob Dylan, and then said it's about two brothers from Mexico migrating to California, working long hours in an orchard for shit pay, then deciding it was worth the risk to make meth instead for the money they'd make, until one brother dies in a lab explosion and the other buries him and takes the money they'd saved together to do who knows what next. This album's kind of a downer, huh?
I had to. So I'm going to come clean. I had to look at your note first for this one because I was was just like, I was lost. Like I watched the lyrics as they rolled through and I was like, this is a weird story. Like I want to make sure I'm getting it.
Yeah.
And you're, like you said, you're good at the summaries. So I went and looked at it and I was like, okay, that's what I got. Let me listen to it again to see if I'm missing some human message or something there. And I don't think I was.
No,
I
think it literally is just a report of events that happened.
Yeah, that's what it felt like. And I think that's why, for me, this was the first miss
Okay.
on the album. Do you ever watch Breaking Bad?
Yeah.
Okay. Did they use Sinaloa Cowboys? Because they should have.
It's been a long time since I've seen Breaking Bad.
I really hope they did, because I think whatever scene, if they did use it, which they should have, because this is so on the nose.
It's making meth in the desert. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that would make me like the song more, depending on the context, if they use it in Breaking Bad, because I like that show. So
Yeah.
I'll be into it. But otherwise, nah.
Next, we get into another very Mexican-centered story. This one I find pretty interesting. I also said that it's interesting that I noticed this on the song The Line. It's interesting that this album has more instrumentation and better production than Nebraska, yet sounds less varied.
Yeah, I agree.
That's weird, right?
It is weird. That is weird, but I agree with you.
And it's not bad, and I don't find it boring, but somehow he got more sounds and styles out of one guitar and a harmonica on Nebraska than this whole produced album. I don't know.
I'm curious if he had a vision and he probably made the sandbox a little too small for himself on it.
That could be it.
Like that I
Yeah.
can imagine him being like, we're going to make a Nebraska type album, but in the studio, but I don't want to do too much.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. No, that really does kind of just cut the knees off of the possibility of it from, because Nebraska, he didn't set out to make Nebraska.
Right.
Yeah. Interesting. So this one's about a discharged military man in need of a job and joining the Border Patrol, and how different it is for this presumably white man to just follow orders compared to another officer who has ties to the people they're both rounding up and deporting.
Mm-hmm.
Until, of course, the white guy finally recognizes the humanity in the people he's treating like cattle and smuggles a woman out before quitting the job out of guilt.
How relevant for April 8, 2025.
And I like that it avoids a white savior complex
Yes.
thing, because he doesn't end up with the woman.
Yeah.
He tries to find her after and can't,
Yeah.
and then is just left to dream about her. I like that. I think that would be so cheesy and awful if he
Yeah.
ran off in the sunset with the woman he saved.
Which I can envision that Bruce song. I can envision that version of it.
Not on this album.
No,
Yeah.
I agree. Definitely not on this album, but I can imagine him writing the happy ending song. And I appreciate that he doesn't do it here. Again, you're selling the songs better than he is. I don't like Bob Dylan.
Yeah, you don't.
I don't, and it's like, and I know that's a me thing.
But that I get more, because his voice can be hard to get into. I didn't like Neil Young for the longest time because I didn't like his voice. Bob Dylan has a different appeal, I think, than Bruce. I think that's what's made Bruce stand out more, because he had the energy in the live show and wider musical references to pull from to craft his own thing, where Bob Dylan really just kind of lives and dies by the songs.
Yeah.
You know?
Bob Dylan is a poet who learned how to play guitar.
Yeah.
And that's fine. Like I'm not coming at that. I think his poetry is fine. I don't like Timothée Chalamet, so I'm not going to watch that movie.
I still haven't seen it.
It's on Hulu, yeah, so you can watch it. But he, what bothered me about The Line, it was similar to Sinaloa Cowboys, but I was able to put it better this time. It was that he sings the same melody over the same guitar line for several minutes.
Yeah.
And I know that's supposed to make me focus, but it makes me check out because you just did it.
Yeah.
And now you're starting to lose me. And I even said, I was like, is this song amelodic? Like, is he purposefully not singing a melody? Because that now you're distancing me even further with both your artistic choices in performance, in production, and now in composition.
Yeah, I think the atonality or a melodic approach to it works for these kinds of folk songs, story songs that he's doing, and that makes me appreciate Ghost of Tom Joad and Youngstown and anything that has melody
Fair.
more, to break it up. Otherwise, this would be a slog
So
if
then-
every song was like that.
So then, did you like Balboa Park? Because it's the same thing.
Again?
It's the same thing as
I
the
did
line.
say, all
and the
right,
same
this
thing
is
as
starting to
Silhouette.
get monotonous, even if the stories are good.
Yes, the stories are good. I'm again, as
Yeah.
always, not coming at the man for the stories, but he does sound like a pastiche of himself on this one.
Yeah, no, I had said, I just need a chorus, which I know he can do because he's done it on a couple songs here. And then Dry Lightning, all I said was, hey, this has melodies.
Yeah.
Because I don't remember anything about what it's about, but
Sadly-
it has melodies. So he's kind of doing one or the other.
Sadly, this is the part in the album where I did say didn't need to be 50 minutes.
Yeah.
Like this is the
It
part
doesn't,
where
yeah.
like if you had a tight 40, I'll give you 43, 45.
The New Timer is where I said there definitely could be some cut tracks on this album.
Yeah, I did not like the New Timer. I thought it sounded really, really old. This is where I start to get cheeky too, where I said the Ghost of Tom Joad if Nebraska didn't have the juice.
Yeah.
Because like he just started doing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
He started with it. By the time he gets this far into it, you keep playing the same tricks. You're losing me.
Yeah.
And I want to love this album.
I know.
You know what I mean?
I can tell you do.
Like I truly do, and I'm not trying to be contrarian. I'm not trying to come at him.
No.
Like
Well, this is not a very well-loved album. The title track is a couple songs here and there, but
Okay.
I think it faced a kind of similar, not quite backlash, but like what from fans as Nebraska did for being like this,
okay,
but didn't get as much cult love later.
okay,
Because it's really not an innovative album like Nebraska is.
No.
It's just good for what it is.
Yeah.
And if it's not your thing, it's not your thing, you know? Across the Border is a beautiful song about the promise of what lies elsewhere. But if this is what the people fleeing to America are thinking going in, then there's some tragic irony knowing that the Border Patrol characters in the line and the hard labor and danger of Sinaloa cowboys are what await them instead.
yeah,
You know, I welcome the song's 2 minutes of instrumental at the end just to break up the monotony. But I really like thinking about this song in the context of the stories we've already heard. Because if you did this, I think it works either way. If you put it before songs like Sinaloa Cowboys on the line, because then it's like the harsh reality. But I think that tells a different story. I think instead by having those harsh stories, and then see that there are more people that are still coming here, that are still coming here with hope and faith that they can make their lives better, and they don't know what's in store for them, that message hasn't gotten out there to them, that like things will be hard. That opens up more questions. Why aren't they getting that message? Is it worth it? Like, is all the pain that they're about to go through to get here going to be worth it? Maybe it is, you know, maybe not today in 2025, but
Yeah.
it's 30 years ago, because this came out in 95, like 30 years ago, maybe it would,
yeah.
you know?
I feel like I can't picture this before those songs. I think it has to be here because it becomes a little broader.
Yeah.
Whereas he's starting to sum up the album.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas I can see it working as an introduction. I just don't think it would be as strong of a sequencing.
Yeah.
In that way. I had the same problems with this song as I did previously. Too much Western, not enough noir.
Got it.
That's truly just it. Like that's a subjective thing, 100%. I also thought this is like white men in their 30s who like really get into World War II. Like Bruce is he's in his 40s and he was like, I really like the West.
Yeah.
Like, and he just wants to write an album, which is fine.
That's
That's not my genre. You know?
Yeah. Then we get to Galveston Bay. This one, I think this one's very interesting.
I think it's interesting too.
So instead of Mexican immigrants, it's about Vietnamese immigrants.
Which is wild.
Yeah.
Because it feels like it's a different project.
Yeah.
Like thematically speaking, I understand how it's connected. But why are you singing about Vietnamese immigrants all of a sudden?
I have a couple theories. One, maybe to expand the scope, that this isn't specifically Mexican immigrants. Like this is any kind of immigrant story. And maybe because this gives them a way to return to the Vietnam era songs.
Okay.
Of like, you know, I've written about how it was wrong of us to go to war in Vietnam and then come home and have nothing to come home to.
Yeah.
You know, I gave myself PTSD and killed people.
Yeah.
just to come home and be abandoned by the country that I fought for. So now we get another look at this, like this more global look at like, okay, these are the people that were attacked by us. Now they're coming here looking for a better life.
Mm-hmm.
And in that, we get this cool contrast between this Vietnamese immigrant character named Lee and Billy, this white guy, veteran, like grew up in this town of Galveston Bay. And they're both, I think, like fishermen or something. They're both working like either like fishing or crabbing or something in the bay.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all about xenophobia, and it tells a story about like Lee and some other Vietnamese immigrant like accidentally killing somebody, and then Billy has the chance to go kill Lee.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason decides not to. And we don't know why. But in the end, he must accept that Billy and Lee are just two men working the same job and providing for their families.
Mm-hmm.
And it's this, Bruce describes in the book this being kind of a ray of hope in an otherwise like very dreary album. And I like that. I like that it, among all the, oppression and, exploitation of immigrants and their labor and not giving them their right to a better life, that we finally have a moment where even the people that feel like they're being pushed out or their way of life is being ruined by these damn people coming in from other countries, even they can stop and recognize humanity in each other.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how realistic it is. I mean, we've all seen the damage of hatred and xenophobia and racism. We've all seen what it can do and how it can dictate huge political and policy changes across the whole country. But we've also seen that when it's staring back at us, we can rise up and say no to it. I mean, I was just in that hands-off protest on the 5th, like 3 days ago, and New York City was just one of hundreds of cities across the country for a total of 5 million people rising up against a guy I think Billy would have voted for, if you catch my drift. Yeah. So I don't know. Do you have anything else to say about it? I was kind of rambling there.
No, I appreciated that. I usually come at stuff more musically because I'm not a lyrics first person. I appreciated everything you said about it. And again, this was another song that I had to look at your notes for to get better context for. And it made me wish that he published his lyrics like a chapbook or something, because this was another atonal thing that it's so interesting what he's writing about and like the themes he's discussing and exploring. Like I find it fascinating about Billy's decision and why. And like I want to sit with that, but you're distancing me melodically and musically. It actually felt like the music for this song was an afterthought to what's otherwise a great story.
Yeah. That almost makes me think you kind of have to engage with it differently, because this is not the same as listening to like Born to Run or like songs. This is more like kind of like what you said. It's almost like listening to an audiobook of poetry where a guitar is also playing. Yeah. And I'm okay with that, to accept that as just another kind of art Bruce can make. So I kind of judge it more for its effectiveness to do that than comparing it to more music focused songs. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. What I guess what makes it hard for me to get on board with it is it being this late in his career that he's doing it. And so I'm expecting him to be catchy. Like I'm expecting the melodies. I'm expecting the hooks, at least to some extent. You don't have to do it on every song like that. Yeah. That's fine. And especially when you're going for such a dreary album as this, I think it works on the first one, maybe on the second one. And then, like we said, like by Balboa Park, come on, you already did it 3 times. Yeah. And then you're doing it again on this like really deep and heavy song, this penultimate track. I guess by now I should be engaging with it differently, but I'm also worn out because I just had to do it 3 or 4 previous times. Yeah. And also get used to it because this is something new for you. Yeah. And which means it's something new for me because you're the one who knows it's coming. I don't.
Right. Yeah. What did you think of the last song, My Best Was Never Good Enough?
I loved it.
Yeah.
I genuinely, yeah, and I'm not being contrarian. I think I already said I'm not a Bob Dylan guy, but I love that Bruce was like, hey, I was doing Bob Dylan earlier. I'm ripping him off now.
Yeah.
Like,
I said the same thing. I was like, no, this is Bruce at his most Bob Dylan.
And it made me laugh. After like such a dreary album, I felt like there was like a good dose of like, oh, okay, like so there's some levity. Like we're evening things out. I thought the lyrics were terrible.
Yeah.
I think they were like,
and he knows it.
Yeah, and he does know it, and you could hear him knowing it, but it was fun, unlike everything else on the album.
It's true.
So that it's like, I appreciate that he's like, here's a bad song. Here's me doing Bob Dylan. And before I wasn't doing Bob Dylan. I just really listened to Bob Dylan. But now he's like, this is my Bob Dylan impression.
Yep.
And it's like whatever like 2-minute ditty you get.
Yeah.
This is his sitting around the campfire song in Youngstown in the 1800s, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, that's fine.
Yeah, he's just sitting around making fun of like commonly used phrases. And I believe if I paid close enough attention, this is the first time he says fuck on an album.
I think so too. And he said it so softly.
Yep.
As well. It was almost like I got to give it to them at least once, but like I don't really want to say it.
Yeah, he's like, and all that fucking whatever.
I saw the lyric pop up in Apple Music. I was like, oh, he's saying the F-bomb. And then he says it, and I was like, he didn't really say it. He just like mouthed it, and you heard the sound.
Yeah.
Like, I liked it. Did you like it?
You're making me like it more, actually, because I thought Galveston Bay would have been a perfect closer.
100%.
But this is actually kind of a more effective Pony Boy.
Yes. You know? This is the Pony Boy that I like.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I like the song. I can't. You know what? This one might go on like my favorite BS. This might make the list just because it's a fun song.
Yeah.
Like there's some times where I feel like people get so stuck in watching good stuff, listening to good stuff. And every now and then it's like, let me watch a good popcorn movie. And I don't need, give me some empty calories.
Yeah.
So empty calories Bruce, after like having my veggies Bruce for 50 something minutes, I'm with it.
Yep.
I'm fine with it. I liked it.
Yeah. And some of those veggies were perfectly roasted and some were raw.
Yeah.
But they're all good for you.
Yeah.
And and then chips.
And then chips. Yeah. And he's like, here you go. You got some chips.
Good boy.
Yeah, right. He straight up good boyed us. Like, that's true. Yo, I hope some of my students find this somehow, because if they hear good boy and us saying it, are you familiar with that term?
No.
Oh, colloquially with Gen Z, Gen Alpha that we have right now, good boy is like you doing something for me that you don't really want to do, or like you can even like just be doing me a favor, but it's like 100% like me being the alpha to you. So like,
well, that's what I meant by it. But
I know
they
it is.
Say that.
No, but that is what it is.
That's like a trend
Like
now?
that's a trend. Like there's times where it's like, hey, you got a pen I can borrow? And they go, yeah, here you go. And you go, yeah, good boy. I have good boyed students, and when you say it, they're like, you didn't just do that. And I was like, no, I didn't. And they're like, I didn't think so. I was like, yeah, I did good boy. And they love it. They eat it up.
That's like the new daddy.
It's essentially It's essentially daddy.
Yeah.
It's so fun, especially with the middle schoolers, because they can't believe that you're a human and would say these things, because like it's not really that bad to say. It's just like you're having fun. But like an 8th grader being like, hey, like, can you cut it out? Come on, like we're trying to do something. All right, my bad. And you go, all right, thanks, good boy. So good. It's so good. Where do you fall with 90s Bruce?
Where we are right now, Human Touch is at the very bottom of the list. Lucky Town is right above it, and Tom Joad is somewhere in the top 10.
Okay.
But there's I think we're only 13 albums in at this point, 12 or 13, something like that. I've gone ahead, so I've done all the 2000s too, so I can't remember where I placed everything, but I know that I want to say Tom Joad is probably maybe like number 8 in my top 10.
Okay.
I'd say there's definitely other classic albums I like this better than. But Human Touch and Lucky Town, I'm like,
they're throwaway albums to me.
Yeah,
too.
there's things to like from them, but even the good songs they don't do as much heavy lifting, I'd say, as good songs on otherwise kind of meh albums like Born in the USA.
Yeah.
Like none of nothing on Human Touch or Lucky Town is going to be a Dancing in the Dark.
I was gonna say we don't even get an I'm on fire kind of thing. Like, yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, is that more or less what you would?
Yeah, they immediately went to the bottom. I don't remember where I put Tom Joad in my ranking. I can see it going. It's probably in my top 10 because I'm just starting the 2000s. I could even see it like entering top 5 because I like how much I want to love this album.
Yeah.
But there's too many things that I'm just like, that's a sticking point. That's a sticking point, like one after another. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I definitely have my expectations further tempered as we get into the thousands and the tens, especially those Soul Patch cover albums, album covers, whatever.
And a cover album.
Yeah, and a cover album too, I guess, because you didn't do enough Bob Dylan impressions on. If he's doing folk, like it's just gonna be the same thing.
Who inspired Bob Dylan?
I know Pete Seeger. I know. Yeah, they're like, yeah, I know. It's like, yeah. He's going on. He's doing those Pete Seeger sessions. And Pete Seeger's sitting there being like, I heard you play them Bob Dylan songs on Tom Joad. So you got to play some Pete Seeger songs. And Bruce goes, yes, sir, I do. And Pete Seeger goes, good boy.
Good boy. Just give me 11 years first.
Right, exactly, buddy.
Well, when we come back to Bruce, we will be starting the 2000s with a bang.
I'm laughing at the joke, but I don't know if it's been enough time to laugh at that joke.
I mean, look, he did a whole album about 9/11, so you can't possibly say anything bad about that. I mean, that wouldn't be very good taste, would it, Joseph?
Thank you for listening to this week's filler. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Filler. If you liked what you heard, please rate and review this episode to help others find it. For more recommendations and exploration of media we love, go to afterschoolspecial.xyz and follow Filler on Blue Sky. See you next time.